Say hello to your friends. Go ahead, tell them. Say hello, Teddy. Say hello. Are you giving them your snake eyes? Okay. Well, hello. Why hello there, endurance nerds. Welcome to this year's installment of my annual overview and walkthrough of Zwift Academy Road, a series in which you can expect some actionable insights, some helpful tips and tricks, and a big ol' helping of sass to help you to get through this year's Academy. Now throughout this video, if I'm getting a little bit froggy or I clear my throat quite a bit, please excuse that. I'm just getting over strep throat. If you didn't know this about me, I really enjoy getting those diseases that are typically attributable to children for the very first time as an adult. Appendicitis, strep. Actually in December, I'm kind of looking at a couple of weeks of maybe whooping cough or the measles. So if you can help me out with picking my next childhood illness, that would be great. Also, what would be great if you hit that hitchhiker salute there down below as you make fun of me in the comments. It really helps the video and the channel quite a bit. But my ridiculousness aside, let's get right into the content here. And in this video, what you can expect is an overview of Zwift Academy Road for 2023, what you can expect, and hopefully helping you to evaluate whether or not this program is right for you. I want to talk about how the program is structured, as well as some key differences from years past. So I think this video will be helpful for those people who are seeing the Academy for the very first time, as well as experienced folks alike. So let's just start with the basics. I mean, it's November. I'm making this video now. This is the first time in the history of Zwift Academy that we've run the beginning of the Academy in November. Historically, it's been in August, maybe early September, but it generally happens, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, in that transition from summer to fall. And I think that's caused a lot of consternation for the members on Zwift, as many of us are not really quite ready to walk away from outdoor riding yet. I know I myself am an outdoor first rider, and I use Zwift to keep up some fitness and to train for specific events in inclement weather throughout the entirety of the year. I've heard many of you give feedback either on this channel or in the Zwift forums that discuss that you're just not willing to come indoors when it's still 75 degrees and beautifully sunny out in your particular area. I feel that. In November, I don't think it's as much as a sacrifice for most of us in the Northern Hemisphere. Weather's starting to get a little bit wetter, a little bit cooler, especially throughout the US, Europe, Asia. However, I know that our folks down under, we're in a different season. You're transitioning from spring into that summer period. So I'm hoping that this still happens at a time that the transition is still suitable for you, because I think some of the differences in the workout structure might actually be very well timed, even better timed for those of you in those areas, because they've made some pretty substantial changes here. And I think it's helpful to go into your in-season having done some of these workouts. But more on that in a few minutes. Now I want to talk from a very high level as to who this program is for. And I've said this in years past, but it rings even more true this year. Now, I do want to talk about some of what's gone on in the past for those of you who have been around, and for those of you who are new here, some of these insights might be helpful for you to understand the overall design. I think over the past couple of years, Zwift has really struggled in terms of execution and really delivering on the expectations when it comes to this program. My personal opinion is that they tried to be too much to too many different people. I'm all about inclusion on the platform, but I really don't think the Academy program was ever designed for the absolute beginner. There are different ways to define beginner. I'm using beginner to describe those people who are more or less off the couch, maybe only a month or two into riding a bike in general, and not necessarily the person who's just in those beginning phases of understanding structured training, building plans, and following a workout regime. But I do think Zwift was trying to counteract some of that limitation to the very beginner by putting too many bells and whistles in place. And it just ended up leading to a lot of noise and disappointment. Noise for us as the riders trying to navigate these different schedules, all these different deliverables that we needed to do, and then some failures in execution that created a lot of noise for Zwift and their support staff. Emails that didn't go out during segment group rides, giving people the evaluation that they were expecting for their phenotype as a rider. Schedules that were not permissive in terms of doing a 45-minute recovery ride, which is really a non-value add. People can do a recovery ride at their own discretion whenever they want. We don't need a group event to do that, or there are plenty of group events to choose from on Zwift if you do want to do those types of rides in a group. There was absolutely no shortage of support requests, forum chatter when it came to just failure to launch for a lot of these extra bells and whistles that they baked into the program in the last couple of years. Now I think this year Zwift has learned from that mistake and really gone back to their roots and something more akin to what the program looked like in 2016 in its first year. That was probably its most successful year in terms of launching the program as expected. And I think that they made some modification that makes it a little bit more accessible, so it wasn't pro contender first. We'll talk about the pro contender piece here at the end of the video, and more balance for the amateur and the pro contender alike. So I think they've moved that in a positive direction. I think we will see much fewer support calls, much fewer frustrations when it comes to the community. There's always going to be the occasional bug, that one-off person who doesn't get credit for an event that support can fix, but I think this is going to be a lot more straightforward for a lot of people. There also seems to be a more myopic focus on the Zwift Academy Road in particular. Unfortunately, at least in my opinion, it seems that they've retired, at least for this season, the Zwift Academy Try and the Zwift Academy Run programs. That means that they're going to focus all of their resources and attention on Zwift Academy Road. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. I think that cycling being the core product and the fact that Zwift really hasn't seen much growth in terms of their running segment has made it probably difficult to manage and evaluate individuals in those running formats. So in Try or in just the Run program, it's a little bit tougher. There's a lot less consistency when it comes to equipment. These days, it's pretty ubiquitous that people have trainers or power meters that are within a certain margin of error that's acceptable, that puts everybody on a level playing field in terms of getting those evaluations. For running, it's not quite there. There's a couple of different types of pods with different readings that aren't really consistent. There's the Zwift Run that bolts right onto your treadmill, and I think that they've just struggled with that consistency. So I don't believe those programs need to be permanently retired, but there is some work to do from a run perspective that will give people equitable experiences. So this is it. This is the program that they have for the year. Now, I do want to talk a little bit more about the comment I made about this program not being for beginners, because you see the word academy, and that almost bespeaks a teachable program, something that is designed for beginners. And this really is not that. I would actually analogize the Zwift Academy to more of a boot camp. If you're enlisting in the military and you're going to boot camp, you don't just go to that boot camp off of the couch. There are going to be things that you're taught, developed, and assessed on during the course of that boot camp, but there are minimum requirements that you need to meet to be able to survive such a program. Those individuals undergo assessments before they're taken into a boot camp program to enlist into the military. I would say that this is pretty similar. You need to meet some minimum standards. I wouldn't say that they're strict, but you have to have some familiarity with structured workouts, know what your capabilities are over certain periods of time. What is it like when I sprint? What does that feel like? How high of a power execution can I sustain for a sprint level effort, or for a 2-minute effort or 5-minute effort? What is my FTP? You need to be somewhat comfortable with those different evaluations of yourself. Somebody brand new to cycling, and maybe even brand new to structured training, this isn't the right program for you. I'm not saying that to discourage you. You are more than welcome to try this program if you want, but I'm trying to be forthright about who this program is for, because when you get engaged and commit to something like this, everybody hates the feeling of sunk cost. So if you get a couple of events in and you really realize that this is too hard, it's not right for me, I don't understand it, it's not making sense, you could have used those efforts and that time to do something else that's a lot more fun for you. I think Zwift has done a great job, especially in 2023, filling out the calendar to provide a number of different events for all different types of cyclists on the platform. In years past, there's been a paucity of events. It's been tough to find things to engage you other than just free riding. So people felt like they had to do all the campaigns throughout the course of the year. At this point, unless you don't work and you make your full-time job Zwift, it's pretty much impossible to do all the campaigns that are available out there. So this might be something that you want to table and look at again next year. But assuming that you're going to stick around, you want to go through the program, let's talk a little bit more about the structure. So I mentioned that it starts on November 6th. This is a program that lasts 6 weeks. I think last year they pulled back a little bit too far. The 4-week benchmark was a little bit prohibitive, especially for people who already had vacations planned, other such conflicts. To get all of the deliverables into the 4-week format was a little tough for folks. Years ago, it used to be 8 weeks. So they've kind of split the difference and it's 6 weeks. And I do think that that's probably the appropriate amount of time. If you, for example, did only one workout per week and one race on the 3rd and 6th weeks, you would have no issues finishing this program. And I think more people load more than one of those workouts into a given week and try to get this done a little bit sooner. For those of you, for instance, that are here in the United States who celebrate Thanksgiving, if you're doing a lot of traveling that week and you're not going to be able to ride at all, there's still enough wiggle room that you'll be able to get the program done. Now, as I mentioned, they pared down the deliverables, made them very straightforward. So this year, the completion is in 2 different categories: 6 structured workouts and 2 races. That's it. No extra recovery rides, no segment group rides, just 6 basic workouts and 2 races. Now, I know that the racing requirement is going to be very polarizing. A lot of you folks out there just Don't go on Zwift to race. You don't like racing. I'm not a big Zwift racing fan myself. I'll jump into it every once in a while when I want a different type of intensity or I'm a little bit bored of structured work, but it's not my favorite thing to do. But at the end of the day, nobody's requiring you to actually race. You just have to complete the event. So whether you come in first place or dead last, you're still going to get credit for doing the event. If I had to guess, during the course of those races, what you're going to find is probably half the people who are just going to break out in smaller groups and ride their own kind of pace or their ride with people who want to ride around the same speed, and then half or fewer are going to be up at the front really contesting that finish. You can decide what's right for you, but if you really wanted to do it as a recovery ride, by all means, you can go ahead and just noodle your way from beginning to end of the course. I'll talk a little bit more about the specifics of the races here shortly, but if this is a deal breaker for you, you may as well know that right out in front. Now, before I get into the nitty-gritty of the workouts and the races, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the incentive structure that comes with doing the program. That's what we live for on a gamified platform like Zwift. We're looking for those completion elements, badges, unlocks, all that fun stuff. It just helps to kind of create that reward system that keeps us enticed to come back again and again, even if it's just in the digital world. So this year, there's going to be 4 available unlocks. I do want to note here, as of making this video, if you log into Zwift and you go into the Academy page to look at your status, right now the infographic only shows 3 unlocks, but if you read the text description of the Academy program, it does list 4. So I'm going to talk about the 4 as if the text is accurate and the infographic is not. So this year the structure is a little bit different for the unlock. Traditionally, it's been a very even cadence of unlocks as you get through the different deliverables. This year it's laid out quite different. So the first thing you're going to unlock is the kit, and the requirement to unlock the kit is only 1 event. So if you finish that first workout, or any of the workouts for that matter, you're going to unlock the kit. Now, if you do 3 events, you're going to unlock the hat that matches the kit. The kit's okay, in my opinion. It's all right. It's a nice deep purple. It's an interesting color. Not everybody loves purple. The design is all right. I'm not a huge fan of Zwift's different designs. I think if they outsource things to Rafa or one of the other companies, they could get a much more compelling kit. But it's there if you want it. You can wear it as a badge of pride with the matching hat if you finish any of the 3 events or the workouts here. Now, the unlock that's not listed in the infographic is the Arrow helmet. So it's going to be a themed Arrow helmet for this year's Academy. That same color scheme that matches the Academy, and that will be unlocked if you do 1 race. So if you complete one of the 2 races, I don't think it matters which one it is, you'll be able to unlock that Arrow helmet. And the last thing that you'll unlock is the entire completion unlock. If you do all 8 deliverables for the Academy, you're going to unlock the paint scheme for the 2021 Canyon Air Road. This has been consistent over the past several years. I don't find it to be the most enticing. You have to purchase the bike if you don't have it already, and I don't see the Canyon Air Road as being one of the most popular bikes out on the platform. It's relatively highly ranked from an aero performance perspective, but I don't know if it's going to be a huge draw. So in my opinion, if you're evaluating your participation in the Academy, especially for those of you who have been on Zwift for a little while, it's going to be based on the content and not so much the unlock. But hey, I could be wrong. So now let's get into the specifics of the Academy. I am going to do a series of videos for those of you who haven't been around for past series, going through each of these workouts in detail. I will actually experience the workout myself and then give you guys some feedback as to how it went, what you can expect, what types of on-screen prompts might be confusing, which ones are effective, what you need to pay attention to, focus on, nutritional advice, all of that good stuff. I just want to go to a high-level overview here so you know what to expect in this year's Academy. This workout program, or this collection of workouts, is a pretty substantial divergence. There's some positives and there's some things that I'm not going to call negatives, but are some things to think about for you as the participant as to whether or not this program is right for you. The first positive element that I've seen here is that they've really given more thought into what they consider a long and a short workout. Last year, your long workouts peaked at, I believe, 60 or 61 minutes. For anybody who's been training for any appreciable amount of time, 61 minutes is not a long workout. That's not to be confused with what's considered a long ride, but a long workout is usually closer to 90 minutes to maybe 2 hours. In this case, it looks like they've pushed their long workouts to closer to 75 to 90 minutes, somewhere in that range, and the short workouts are more around that 45 minutes. I think that that's more appropriate from a workout duration perspective. So I think a lot of you experienced riders out there are going to enjoy the additional length. If you're going to get on the bike for a period of time, you can pick one of those 2 workouts. It's important when you're figuring in warm-ups and cool downs that that's a part of your workout time. And if you need enough time and intensity to make the workout worthwhile, usually 30 minutes isn't going to be enough. So looking for somewhere in that 45 minutes range for a shorter workout and up to 90 minutes for the longer workout, I think that that's the more appropriate duration. And the most important thing I want to mention about these workouts is that 5 out of 6 of them aren't strict workouts from the traditional sense. So for those of you who have been in academies past and you have seen the pro contender optional workouts, those are more like assessments. That's precisely what 5 out of 6 of these are. So that's something you really need to consider when you're engaging in this program. If this is something that fits your needs and your desires as a rider, you're only going to get out of this program what you put into it. And that's not just from a physiological perspective, that's also from like a post-work and a mental perspective. You're going to be required to kind of go in after the fact and evaluate your rides and glean insights in terms of your profile as a rider, your abilities, and you're going to have to look at those charts and graphs after the fact to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to this program. So let's just kind of take a look at this first workout to explain what I mean by that. This one's called Explosive 30s, and this is kind of a traditional warm-up and a couple of priming sets here, and then you go into what you see these peaks are as gray bars. And for those of you who have been on Zwift, you know that the gray bars typically indicate that that's your zone 1 or your recovery zone. When you see gray bars or these kind of squiggly lines at the top of the intervals, that means a free ride section. So for those of you on erg, that's going to turn off the resistance in your trainer to a certain extent and force you to shift into a gear and sustain a power on your own. And for those of you not on erg, you're just going to have no target power in front of you. It's going to ask you to give your maximal execution for the time period allotted. So for 30 seconds, for 2 minutes, you're going to be asked to give the maximal power that you can hold for those periods of time. So you can imagine if you're not as intimately knowledgeable of yourself and your abilities and your power by feel, you may struggle with these. Moreover, most people don't have a memory for what their average power, their execution is during the course of an interval. You're going to have to look at that after the fact. Now, ideally, Zwift would be sending out an email after each of those workouts that could give you some insights as to what your 2-minute power is or your 30-second power is, but that's not very likely going to be the case. So the work and the onus is on you as the rider. If that's too abstract or just doesn't fit what you have time for or what you desire, this program may not be for you because, as I said, 5 out of 6 of these workouts is going to be a similar format. These are not the types of workouts that you're going to repeat every week, a couple times a week, even once every 2 or 3 weeks. These are something that you might sprinkle into your program on a quarterly basis or at the end of particular training phases, just to evaluate where you stand from a power profile perspective. So kind of moving on down through the next workouts, you can see your fatigue fighter, same concept. Your warm-up, some pre-fatiguing sets, and then you have a free ride section where you're gonna ride at or around your FTP and do somewhat of a sustained effort test. You're gonna wanna scrub over that block there to see what your execution of power was, how consistent you were. You can take a look at things like cadence. Again, you're only gonna get out of it what you put into it. Moving on down to workout number 3, you've got the finisher. This looks very similar to workout number 1 when it comes to the working intervals here, but at this point it's trying to simulate what would happen at the end of a long, tough ride or a race of some sort. So you're gonna pre-fatigue the system and then you're going to do those same 30-second and 2-minute tests and see how much different your performance is. So now the best thing to do, if you understand these in context, is to compare workout number 3 performance to workout number 1. How much do you lose when you have more fatigue baked into the system? These are not things that are intuitive for most people. So that's where this academy is not necessarily designed for the beginner. Moving into workout 4, this is probably what I would consider to be the only traditional workout. These are just repeat efforts at different levels of VO2 max, changing some of the durations a little bit, but this is going to be bread and butter VO2 max level work here. Workout number 5, another steady state with a bit of an assessment at the end. This is going to be a little bit lower power, so not quite around that threshold level, but more of that go all day sweet spot or tempo effort. And this is intended to give you a challenge both physically and mentally, right? Holding a static power for a period of time, it's very trying mentally. It's something that time trialists really have to work on quite a bit, but this workout is meant to challenge that system as well. And the final workout here is the all-out burn. This is basically looking at what your maximal 5-minute effort is going to be, almost like your attacking efforts, and after pre-fatiguing the system, right? You're going through some of these priming efforts efforts and pre-fatiguing efforts to exhaust all of your energy systems. You've got a lot of aerobic work in here. You've got some VO2 max in here. So you're gonna be pretty cooked by the time you get to this evaluation here. But it's meant to see, well, what can you hold for that 5 minutes as you near the end of a challenging ride or a race. As you can kind of see right in the design, I'll put the links to this down below. These are not strict workouts. So if you're looking to get a better stimulus in terms of working those energy systems, more repeatability, practicing to perform well in these types of assessments, this might not be the right program. So you may want to look at something more akin to a training plan, or maybe even take a look at some of the workouts from Zwift Academy's past. I don't think that these are poorly designed per se, but it's going to be a much different narrative and a much different target than it has been in some of the workouts in years past. Now moving on down here to the racing profile here, there's 2 races available. Both of these races are going to occur on variable terrain, so our lighter weight riders are going to be pleased to not be dealing with some crit style race or fast flats where they have no chance in the world. These are going to allow you to use a little bit more planning, a little bit more strategy and tactics in terms of attacking at the right time if you're interested in the racing portion. So the 2 courses that you're going to race are going to be Rolling Highlands in Scotland and Cobble Climbs in Richmond. And those racing events will be available between November 20th and December 17th, so that final Sunday of the program. So it's going to be the back half of the program that these will be available. So you'll be able to do a lot of your workouts in the front end of the program and maybe get a better understanding of your capabilities, what your attacking potential is, what your sprinting potential is. So it could be valuable to give yourself the first 3 weeks to get most of those workouts or those assessments done. I don't know what the scheduling cadence will be for the races. I know that what I see today in terms of the workouts is about once every 2 hours. So they're trying not to overload the calendar, but I have seen some criticism in years past that every 2 hour framework sometimes does not fit on the right cadence for certain riders, their work schedule. Rest assured that you do not need to do the workouts in an event format. The workouts are going to be available in your workout folder. I can't show you that now because those workouts have not been pushed. They will not be pushed until the Monday of November 6th, which begins the program. But every year they show up in that workout folder under Zwift Academy Road 2023. You'll be able to drill down and select the workouts that you want, either the long or the short variant, so that if you cannot do the group workouts, you're not going to miss out on completion of the program. Now, what I wish they would do from a racing perspective is maybe bifurcate those events for categories that are going to run as races and categories that will run as group rides. I know that they're calling them races, but let's face it, not everybody wants to race this time of the season. You may be entering your off season and you're not looking for quite as much intensity, and the workouts are going to provide more than enough intensity for your given plan, but they have category enforcement turned on. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of category enforcement, but for those of you who are not familiar with that term, it means that Zwift is evaluating your power profile and your capabilities as a rider over a recent history, and then it's telling you what category you belong in, A, B, C, or D. And with category enforcement turned on, that means you can only race at or above your existing category. So if you're a category C rider, category D will be grayed out and inaccessible to you. So for an example, if you're a category B rider, but you really want to ride at a lower pace, you want to do an endurance pace, you want to do a tempo pace, you can't just simply choose the category C or D and then go in and ride at a lower intensity for you. It's meant to discourage individuals who are not being forthright and honest and are trying to beat up on those lower category folks, even if you in particular are doing it in good faith. It would be nice to have that bifurcation so that individuals can just choose a pace that they want to ride at, as opposed to choosing a pace group that they need to race at. So again, as I said before, you need to decide what's right for you. If you're interested in the workouts, but the races aren't really your cup of tea, there's a way to get around that and just complete the effort or complete the event. But I don't know if this is necessarily the ideal execution. If you're on the fence about racing, I recommend you give it a try. It can be very fun. A lot of people love racing. I think you can probably split Zwift in maybe a 50-50 or a 40-60 breakdown of people who really love racing and people who really aren't that much into it. But there's a lot of folks on the bubble as well. So you make that decision for yourself. I wouldn't necessarily let the races dissuade you from the program entirely, but I think you need to look at the program holistically as to whether it fits your training desires and your objectives. The last thing I'll touch on here is the pro contract. There's some details here on the website. I will link that. I'm not going to go into great detail. There's some differences from last year in terms of the inlet to the World Tour teams. So last year, the men's winner would go directly to a World Tour team. This year, both the men's and women's winner will go to the development team. I think that that's more appropriate because there's more than just power profile and strength capability that makes a pro rider. I think the development team creates a readiness and a maturity in those riders in order to make them ready for a World Tour team. Now, in order to be eligible, you have to finish all of the events. This year, there's no difference between the requirements to graduate and the pro contender workouts. So you just do the same program as everybody else. You need to be over the age of 18 as of January 1st of 2024, and you have to enter your weight and height properly in Zwift. So no weight doping. They will check for that on an event basis. So you're not going to skate anything past the goalie in that regard, and you need to wear a heart rate monitor for every single workout and race. So they're trying to keep as much data integrity and human integrity as possible in terms of the pro contender rides. Trust me, nobody's going to scam their way to the top here. If anything looks nefarious or suspicious, you're going to get booted from the program. So if this is something that you're into and you're really interested in going for it, make sure everything is set up accordingly, and redundancy never hurts. Second power meter is always helpful. If a trainer fails, you want to get proper credit for the work that you're doing. But I know that's a long video. It's a long overview. It's meant to be targeted to individuals new to the Academy as well as those who have been around. I hope that this helps you to decide before you get started on Monday the 6th whether this is the right program for you so that you can distribute your effort and your time accordingly. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. I'll make sure that I list some helpful links and resources down in the show notes down below. Any other comments or concerns, that's what the comments section is for. I appreciate each and every one of you. Give this video some love, like, subscribe, helps the video and the channel out quite a bit. And as always, I will catch you in the next one. See ya.